Hello and welcome. This is a demo video for my project Unattended Jenkins jobs. So what this does is it sets up Jenkins for you. Now when you install Jenkins, normally there are 3 post-installation steps that needs to take place, and they have to be done graphically. So the first one is unlocking Jenkins. You enter a secret password. Second is plugins. So Jenkins actually asks you whether you want to install suggested plugins or not. And the third one is creating a user. And this is actually documented on the Jenkins official website as well. So what this does is it skips that, does it programmatically through the file cac.yaml. Now this is configuration as code plugin, and that plugin reads Jenkins configuration from here. This is a user that's being set up. Now the user is being provided at runtime, either through an environment file, or at runtime you can just write, hold on, it's actually here, see, minus environment Jenkins ID, and you can provide the username and password directly when you're running the code. So this is a little bit of explanation here. Now authorization strategy, this is the group authenticated and we have given it every single ability. Now for users, there are 2 users that are created. One is your Jenkins user that you made, and then there's something called anonymous. Now anonymous only has read permission, so they can just see and not change anything. The next is tools. Now tools is the global tools or tools configuration, and this sets it up as you have Git and you have Node.js. So this whole thing is just Node.js install. Now this one over here, when you install Jenkins, the final step in the installation is it will ask you what's the address should be to access the install, right? And that's right here. So, and it also removes a reverse proxy warning or message if you get it. And if you do get it, you can change it here. So that's the configuration of Jenkins. And surprisingly enough, you can add agent configuration as well and create an agent here. Or you can install a separate plugin and write the configuration for approving scripts. So that's also present. Now the way this works is you have to download this project. It will read the Docker file. Now if you open the Docker file, everything is clear here. Instead of using Ubuntu or Alpine Linux, it calls in the official Jenkins image. Now right here, it shuts off the setup wizard. So that means that those 3 post installation steps will not run. This is telling Jenkins to use the configuration file cac.yaml. And right here is the plugin setup. So there are 2 plugin files that have been provided. One is plugins.yml and plugins.txt. So you can use either or, but you have to change the file name here. It copies that and runs the CLI for installing the plugins. Now the plugins are taken in from the official GitHub page. So the suggested plugins are installed, and it also mentions a custom plugin. Remember Git tools, we have code Node.js. So that's here, see, user requested plugins, Node.js. So that's there. And this is how the case.yml is being transferred into the Jenkins home. Now I have also provided a file called Jenkins-CLI. So what this does is it allows you to use Jenkins without opening a web browser. So you can create a job, you can delete a job, and so on. Now this is a sample job that I have made, simple API, and a shell script for using that simple API. Simple API is this, simple API test. It will download this, install, and run it. So the run command is npm run test. It will not do npm run report. So you have seen the Docker file, you have seen case, and you have seen plugins.yml. Now let's take a look at setup job.sh so I can explain that to you what exactly is happening here. So I am using getOpts. So getOpts is, for example, you can run command line, right? So you can do java --help. So that --help is options. Now bash provides a command line ability called getOpt, but that may not work with other shell. So that's why for any POSIX related shell, a functionality has been provided, and that's called getOpts with an S. But the limitation on that one is it only takes one character. So instead of --help, it will just go -h. That's it. So how this works is it will read the input provided to the shell script and then go through each of the options. So the usage technically is right here. So you provide $0 means the script name. So you provide -u your username, password, and you can provide -h for help if you want. That's it. So getOpts is this one. It will cycle through the command line arguments and cycle through the flags and perform an appropriate operation. Now this one here, colon bracket, it simply means that I did -u, for example, but didn't provide an argument. So there is a flag but nothing following it. So it will just simply come out and say, okay, -u requires an argument. Now star bracket over here, this means default. This is a switch case, so there has to be a default value. So this is the default value. So default is simply just exits. Right here, this if block is just to make sure that if you're running this script, you're providing both username and password. The reason why I'm going for this script instead of having you guys write a long line of code is it's easier to use, and you can modify one thing and just be done with it. For example, to create a job, the actual command line is this big, and to run the same job you have to redo the whole thing. So this shell script does it for you. And here's the best part. In the build command, I have added the flag -s and -v. So what this does is these two flags make sure that the console output from running the job is directed to stdout. So it will print out whether the job was successful or something happened. So you don't have to go into GUI and start clicking stuff. And if I open simple API.xml, you can actually check it out. See, it pulls in api.test, does an npm install, and then just simply runs npm run test. That's it. So let's do a quick demo of this. So for cd into the location where it is, I'm already there, and run the command docker build -t. Now -t tag is actually naming the image. So you can call it whatever you want. I'm just calling it Jenkins configuration as code. You run this, and it will download the Jenkins file. See, each of the Docker file commands are actually running here. See, copy, run, copy, 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 copy. Now we run it. Now there are two ways of running it, and let me show you something. There is an environment file. I have created an environment file. Now if you look at the usage, it mentions two ways of running it. So you can provide either at runtime Jenkins admin and password, or you can use an environment file. So we will be using an environment file. So just to show you what that environment file is, it's right here. See, Jenkins admin ID and admin password. I've set it here. And if you look on my GitHub repo, the environment file is not provided. That way you can provide this and be secure about it, that okay, I know the username and password. So it becomes, the command essentially becomes this: run you can provide the name for the container. I'm putting the name of the container as the same as the image. --rm simply means when this container stops executing, Docker will delete this container. -p is port mapping, and I'm port mapping to 8081. This will clash with the reverse proxy, but you can still use Jenkins. And I've specified my environment file. You just saw the contents of it. So the ID is this and the password is that, and this is the image name. So you can also provide, if you want, another flag before the image name, and that is -d. -d simply means detach, and instead of all of the output that came up like when we were creating the image like this, no output would be displayed. It will just display the container name. That's this. But for this one, we actually want the output to show up because we want the last line that will show whether the container is executing or not. Sorry, whether the Jenkins is operational or not. So we let this run. See, if we did -d, all of this information will never show up. But we want this information because this way we can know if any error is occurring. See this info section? It will change to ERR or something else to showcase that there is an error. Here it is. Now it says Jenkins is fully up and running. Now remember we provided a username and password. So just to showcase to you that it's actually working, I'm going to connect, see, 8081 localhost. Jenkins is functional. Now if I go to login and enter the same details as the environment file, I can sign in. It works. And if we go into manage Jenkins, sorry. And we also set up tools and plugins. See, reverse proxy setup is broken, and I did mention it that I'm using 8081. It should be 8080, so we can change that as and when needed. But if we go into tools, here it is. Git setup is done, and there is Node.js installation, which actually calls it out, and everything is set up here. Now if we go back into manage Jenkins, plugins, and go into installed plugins, there you go. We have the installed plugins, and we can also check for the custom plugin that was Node.js. So just to make sure, here it is. Node.js is already installed. So all of that setup has been done from one file. One file and the second file for the plugins. Now to run a job. So let's run a job. We have the Jenkins operational. Now to run a job, all you need to do is connect to the container using exec. Now docker exec means execute, and interactive will put in this command prompt into an interactive state, and TTY is just a shell. Connect to the so TTY is the terminal, and this is the container name, and what exactly do we want. So that's bash. So we do this. Now we are inside our container. So if I do ls, see, this is a Linux file system, not Windows. And we go into Jenkins home. If I do ls-la, here it is. Simple API XML is right here. Setup job is here, and Jenkins-CLI.jar is here. Now the thing about Jenkins-CLI.jar is, if you want it, you have to get it graphically. You have to click on manage Jenkins, scroll down, and there it is, Jenkins-CLI. Now if you click on this, see on the bottom left, it tells you that's how you can get it. Once you get it, then you can use it, but I'm providing it here in this project as is. So let's run setup.sh. Now remember setup.sh, it said you need certain flags to run it. I'm just gonna press enter. There you go. That was the default one that the message came up. What's the usage? Now the other thing that was colon bracket, that was if I just did this, if there is no username. If I did this, it will, see, it came up -u requires an argument. So now let's run it with the correct one, right? So if you press enter, here we go, creating a job, running a job, start, and there is the stdr, and look in the background, it's running. It has begun execution. Now here it says unpacking node.js, so we can click on this, click on simple API, click over here, and see, exact same output. I wish I could make it smaller, but here we go. The console output is now on your terminal. Now it's just, this is the job number, so you have job number 1 over here. There we go, see, it's running here. Timeout 10. It fetched the simple API test.get. Now it's doing the npm install. I'm scrolling this down. That ran, and here it is, see, valid test, invalid test. It's going to start printing out the same output as what we're getting here. Okay, 25 passing, finished success. 25 passing, 9 seconds. Exact same output. As everything else. So you got the whole output from running a job directly in your terminal. I didn't even touch the GUI. We created a job, we built the job and ran it. You can press Ctrl D to disconnect, so it will exit that. Now we are back in our own file system. Now before I quit this video, or sorry, end this video, there is also a separated commented out section here. Now what this does is, once you have ran the job, once you have a build number, you can uncomment this, remove the -s -v so that it doesn't become verbose and you don't get the output. You can run this command. Just substitute the job name and the job build number here and put the appropriate flags, and you will get a similar looking output depending upon what the commands were used. So if I go to the dashboard again, here we go, it ran. Well, that's my project, Unattended Jenkins jobs. Thank you and have a good day.